The emptiness of space lay unnervingly still, a deceptive calm before the storm. Admiral Dorian Rains stood firm on the bridge of the HSS Retribution, his gaze locked on the tactical display where hostile vessels shifted into formation. The Galactic Dominion had convinced itself that humanity was fragile. They believed Earth was just another backwater world to claim, another species to chain. But they were about to learn the truth. The Dominion had spent centuries locked in brutal conflict with the Turalis, a reptilian empire ruling across hundreds of star systems. It was a grinding, endless war. The same territories fought over and reclaimed like an infinite match of galactic chess. But when the Dominion turned its ambition toward soul-demanding humanity's surrender, they made their gravest mistake. Humans did not surrender, humans endured. Humans struck back. It had begun with scattered skirmishes, pirate raids, ships lost in the shadows of colony routes. Then came the siege of Mars. The Dominion believed the fight would end swiftly, but they hadn't reckoned with humanity's unyielding will to endure. Now Earth answered with its full strength. Admiral came the call of Commander Nathan Solis from his console. The Dominion fleet is dug in at the Lagrange Point defensive line. Looks like they think they're prepared. Admiral Rains allowed himself a thin smile. Then we'll show them how mistaken they are. The human armada advanced like a storm, sleek dark warships, their hulls coated in adaptive camouflage bending into the void. Dominion sensors attuned to energy signatures, and movement faltered, struggling to keep pace. By the time they realized the assault had begun, it was far too late. The first strike was merciless. SS Fury, HSS Nemesis, and HSS Warhammer spearheaded the charge. Kinetic slugs fired at near light speed shredded Dominion shields like paper. Plasma fire ripped through their ranks. A Dominion cruiser erupted, fragments spinning into the abyss. They had never faced such ferocity. Humanity's fleet wasn't the most advanced nor the largest, but it was fast, it was erratic, and more than that, it fought with a ruthless efficiency. The Kato was fast, it was erratic, and more than that, it fought with a ruthless efficiency. The Kato was fast, it was Avanza. Dominion, long used to drawn-out attrition wars, could not comprehend. The Dominion flagship Trax Honor issued a frantic distress beacon. Reinforcements were already called, but it was obvious they wouldn't survive long. Rain stood calm, his gaze fixed on the tactical feed. Bring the railguns online, he commanded. The Retribution's colossal twin barrels roared to life. The Dominion knew energy weapons. They knew torpedoes, but they had never faced this. Humanity's railguns were brutally simple, vast projectiles hurled at impossible speeds, ripping warships apart by sheer force. The opening volley hit a Dominion battleship dead center. Its hull caved and vanished in a storm of debris. Panic rippled through their fleet formations. Collapsed officers drilled in rigid doctrine were helpless against an enemy who anticipated every move, striking with savage precision. Admiral Solis spoke again, astonished. They're retreating. Rains folded his arms, watching their collapse. Some fled, others powered down and surrendered. Within a minute, it was finished. Let them scatter, he said coldly, but make sure the message spreads. Earth will not bow. The clash had ended. Humanity had arrived, and nothing in the galaxy would remain unchanged. The Dominion's rout echoed across the stars. Fleets that had never known fear now faltered. The word spread like fire. Humanity was not a minor race. They were something far more terrifying, an enemy who fought not to endure, but to conquer. Aboard the HSS Retribution, Admiral Dorian Rains stood before the vast holographic projection in the war room, his officers arrayed around him. The recent battle had been a triumph, yet he knew it was only the opening act. Commander Nathan Solis broke the silence first. They won't let this stand. We shamed them. Their code demands retaliation. Rains inclined his head, his expression carved in steel. Exactly. Which is why we don't wait for their counterstrike. He turned to Major Lillian Carter, head of intelligence operations. What do we have on their nearest command hubs? Carter, a battle-hardened veteran of Shadow Wars, keyed a sequence into her console. The map shifted to highlight the Vela 9 system, a Dominion fortress world. Vela 9 is their strongest forward outpost in this sector. If they regroup anywhere, it will be here. Then that's where we strike. Rains declared the message will be clear. Earth doesn't wait for storms. We are the storm. Agreement rippled through the circle. This was humanity's way, never reactive, always pressing forward. Solaces scanned the incoming reports uneasily, his brow furrowed. Vela 9 isn't purely military, it's shelters. Civilians, Dominion loyalists, yes, but also displaced populations and refugees. Rains drew in a slow breath. The room still at this was war, but humanity was not. A race of butchers, they would not burn colonies to ash as the Dominion had done on the rim. We hit their command and infrastructure. He said sharply, the civilians will be irrelevant if their chain of command collapses. We keep it surgical. Carter inclined her head, though her eyes betrayed a shadow of doubt. She had seen too many campaigns to believe in clean wars. The hours that followed blurred with planning orders and encrypted transmissions. The fleet surged through slipstream corridors. Emerging on the edge of Vela 9, the 4 Dominion sensors even marked their arrival. The enemy was still reassembling when the Terran Armada struck. Stealth craft slipped past outer defenses. Railgun fire obliterated supply platforms, crippling logistics. Precision barrages silenced communications, isolating the fortress before resistance could mount. It was already finished. The HSS Retribution loomed over the ruins of the base when a transmission cut through the static. The face of a Dominion admiral filled the screen, scaled features contorted in fury. You strike like cowards from the dark. This is not war, it is disgrace. Rains leaned closer, his tone like frozen steel. You misunderstand, Admiral. Honor means nothing to us. Victory means everything. The link severed. The Dominion understood humanity was not prey, but predator, and the hunt had only just begun. The wreckage of Vela 9 drifted like bones across the void, its once mighty stronghold reduced to flaming debris, smoldering in silence. Salvage drones picked through the remains while the Retribution hovered above a specter of inevitability. The operation had been ruthless, exact, and overwhelming, but Rains knew it was merely a chapter, not the end. Commander Nathan Solis joined him at the observation deck, his expression unreadable. The Dominion fleet isn't responding to distress calls from Vela 9 either. They're too afraid to face us, or they're planning something bigger. Rains folded his arms. We've backed them into a corner. The next move will be desperation. Major Lillian Carter's voice cut through the bridges. Calms. Admiral, we just intercepted a transmission from deep within Dominion space. Let's hear it. Carter's face appeared on the main screen, her features tight with concern. The Dominion High Command just declared us a Category Omega threat. That's their highest classification, reserved for species deemed existential. Danger's silence filled the room. Everyone understood what that meant. Solis exhaled. So they're calling for total war. Carter nodded. Every fleet, every soldier, every weapon they have. They'll throw everything at us. Rains wasn't surprised. He had anticipated this reaction, but hearing it confirmed was something else entirely. The Dominion had fought other wars before, but never against an enemy like humanity. They had never fought against an opponent who learned, who adapted, who fought not just with strength, but with ruthless, calculated aggression. They think they can drown us in numbers, Rain said, turning back toward the void outside. They don't realize that we don't fight like them. We don't play by their rules. Solis nodded, though there was a shadow of doubt in his expression. Even so, Admiral, this isn't just a fleet anymore. This is the entire Dominion war machine. We're talking about hundreds of battle groups, millions of soldiers, weapons we haven't even seen before. We'll fight smarter, Ryan said simply, and we'll fight harder. Carter tapped at her console. That's not the worst part. Our spies have confirmed that the Dominion is reaching out to the other major empires. They're trying to rally the entire galactic community against us. That was the real problem. Humanity had just made its mark in the galaxy, and already they were being painted as a threat to every other species. If the Dominion succeeded in convincing the neutral factions to join their war, Earth wouldn't be facing a single empire. They would be facing the combined might of the galaxy. A lesser species might have surrendered, might have tried to negotiate to find a diplomatic way out, But humans weren't wired that way. Rains turned to his officers, his voice. Carrying a quiet steel, we send a message of our own solace, arched an eyebrow, and what's that we show them? Why making an enemy of Earth is the last mistake they'll ever make across the fleet. The order went out, war preparations began. Humanity would not be crushed. Humanity would conquer. The Dominion wasted no time. Within days of the Vela 9 massacre reports flooded in from across the galaxy, entire battle groups were being mobilized, fleet stretching for light years, converging toward human-occupied space. The Dominion had called for total war, and the galaxy had answered. Admiral Rain stood in Thecamond, center of the HSS Retribution, staring at the vast network of enemy movements projected onto the holotable. Red dots swarmed like a plague, each one representing a fleet hellbent on humanity's destruction. Commander Nathan Selesix howled sharply beside him. We're looking at a coalition of over 12 species. The Dominion pulled every favor they had. Even the Tiralis, their sworn enemies, have agreed to a temporary alliance to wipe us out. Rains wasn't surprised. More strike one decisive blow, and we could end this. Rains exhaled. And what Sire's suggestion? Solace's tapped on the holo display. The star map zoomed in on a single point. Primaris 1, the Dominion's true home world, not just a military hub, but the beating heart of their empire. You want to take the war to their capital? Rains asked, raising an eyebrow. Solace nodded. They think we're just hit-and-run raiders. They assume we'll stay in the shadows. But if we strike Primaris 1, if we them, where it hurts, they'll have no choice but to surrender. Major Carter chimed in through the comms. He's right. If we destroy their leadership, the Dominion collapses. No one else in the coalition will keep fighting without them. Ryan studied the hologram for a long moment. This was it, the final move in the game. The Dominion had declared total war now. Humanity would finish it. We do it, he said. Finally, Wedeki the capital, and we end this war. The battle for Primaris 1 began with fire and fury. The HSS Retribution led the charge, emerging from slipstream space with the full force of humanity's combined fleet. The Dominion had fortified the system, deploying dozens of battle groups and planetary defenses. But none of that mattered. The humans didn't fight fair. Electronic warfare teams hijacked enemy communications, feeding them false orders. Dominion fleets turned against each other in the cause, mistaking allies for enemies. Precision orbital strikes hammered Kai infrastructure, cutting off power grids, command centers, and planetary shields. And then the ground invasion began. Elite human shock troops deployed across the capital city of Vecta Prime, where the Dominion's ruling war council had barricaded themselves in the Citadel of Lords. The Dominion, once a proud empire of conquerors, now found itself under siege. Nathan Salthas led the assault himself, cutting through the last of the Dominion's defenders. He and his strike team breached the War Council's chambers. Weapons raised. The Dominion lords, one Chesso, arrogant and untouchable, now cowered before them. One of them, a high-ranking warlord, hissed through his fanged maw, This is impossible. We are the Dominion. You are lesser than us." Solace leveled his rifle at the alien head. Not anymore. A single shot rang out. Admiral Rains watched from orbit as Dominion surrender was broadcast across the galaxy. Their once mighty empire brought to its knees, not by sheer numbers, not by superior firepower, but by ruthless strategy. The war was over. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not as a minor player, not as another species to be pushed around, but as a force to be feared, and the galaxy would never forgive. War was over, but peace was not guaranteed. The Dominion surrender sent shock waves across the galaxy. Their once mighty fleets drifted aimslanders and fractured their allies, once so eager to fight. Humanity now scrambled to distance themselves from the losing side. Some worlds rejoiced in the fall of their oppressors, others feared what would come next. Humanity had proven itself a force to be reckoned with. But no, the real question remained: what would they do with their victory? Admiral Rain sat alone in his private quarters aboard the Retribution, staring at the latest reports across former Dominion spacer votes. Had erupted. Entire colonies that had once been enslaved were rising up, urging their former overlords. Some called for Independence, others called for revenge, and some called for human rule. A soft chime rang through the cabin's door slid open, revealing Major Carter. She saluted sharply before stepping inside. "We have a problem, sir," she said. Rains set down his datapad. "Just one." Carter didn't smile. "More like a dozen reports are coming in from the outer Dominion sector. Some of their military governors refuse to acknowledge the surrender they've declared themselves. Warlords rallying whatever fleets they have left." Rains exhaled. "Of course they have." Carter hesitated. "And there's something else. The coalition Asuniasi, the same species that were once willing to fight us, now see us as the next galactic super. Some are already whispering that humanity is the new threat." Rains leaned back in his chair. Had expected this. No empire simply won a war and walked away without consequences. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity, but fear was a fragile thing. It could turn into respect, or it could turn into hatred. Before he could respond, Fintercom crackled. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Terran High Council. Priority 1." Rains glanced at Carter, then nodded. "Patch it through." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Chancellor Elias Monroe, Earth's highest-ranking political leader. His expression was unreadable. "Admiral Rains." Monroe said, his voice measured. "Congratulations on your victory." Rains inclined his head. "Thank you, sir." Monroe's eyes darkened. "But I'm afraid we have little time to celebrate. The Dominion is broken, but not destroyed. Rogue warlords are already rallying their forces, and worse, the galactic community sees us as an unstable power. If we don't act swiftly, we risk another war before this one is even cold." Rieg Sunders, "What's the Council's decision?" Monroe took a deep breath. "We occupy the Dominion's core worlds. We stabilize the region under human governance." Carter's eyes widened slightly. "Even." Rains felt the weight of those words. "You want us to rule them?" Rains asked carefully. "Temporarily," Monroe clarified. "We don't have to hold their entire empire, just the key systems. If we don't, another power will, and the last thing we need is another galactic warlord rising up to finish what the Dominion started." Rains folded his arms. "And what happens when we do take control? Do we leave? Do we stay? How long before humanity becomes just another empire?" Monroe's face was unreadable. "That depends on what happens next." The transmission cut out. Carter exhaled. "We just won the war, and know we're about to start something bigger." Rains nodded slowly. He knew what came next wouldn't be about battles or fleets. It would be about power, and power had a way of changing everything. The occupation of the Dominion's core worlds began swiftly. Humanity moved with surgical precision, deploying fleets to strategic locations, securing vital infrastructure, and ensuring that no warlord could rise from the ashes of the shattered empire. At first, the remnants of the Dominion fought back. Scattered military units desperate to reclaim their lost glory, launched ambushes against human patrols. Terrorist cells fueled by hatred for their new rulers detonated explosives in key government centers, but none of it was no. The Terran forces had fought too long, too hard to be undone by desperate search. For every attack, humanity responded with overwhelming force. For every rebellion, there was swift retaliation. Admiral Rains oversaw the operation from the bridge of the HSS Retribution, watching as his soldiers secured one Dominion world after another. Commander Solaces stepped up beside him. "Most of their resistance is broken," said the few warlords left are fighting each other more than they're fighting us. Rains studied the holodisplay. Dominion space, once a chaotic mess of civil war, was slowly stabilizing under human control. "And the rest of the galaxy?" Rains asked. Solaces hesitated. "They're watching. The Taralis, the Varan, the other species who once backed the Dominion. They're nervous. Some think we'll become conquerors. Others think we'll collapse under our own weight." Rains sighed. "And what do you think?" Liz smirked. "I think we just put ourselves at the center of the galactic stage, and of Irion's waiting to see what we do next." In the halls of the Dominion's former capital, Vecta Prime, humanity's occupant, was beginning to take shape. Major Carter walked through the newly established command center, watching as Terran officials worked to organize the planet's shattered government. Former Dominion administrators, now forced to work under human oversight, muttered bitterly as they compiled planetary reports. Armored soldiers stood watch over them, ensuring compliance. A Dominion governor or reptilian creature, known as High Speaker Kelterven, sat before her, his scaled face contorted in barely suppressed rage. This is not governance, Keller Spathis, is occupation. Carter leaned forward. That's because it is an occupation, Kelter. Let out a low growl. And how long do you think you can hold it? The galaxy will not allow humanity to seize control of our empire. You may have won the war, but you cannot hold on to victory forever. Carter's expression was cold. We don't need to hold it forever, just long enough to make sure the right people are in charge when we leave. Kelter narrowed his eyes and hoed sides. Who is right? Carter smiled. We do, despite human control over Dominion. Space threats still loomed deep in the uncharted regions of the galaxy. Something watched. A shadowy figure stood aboard a darkened command bridge, its form obscured by swirling mist behind it. A group of hooded figures murmured in alien tongue. The humans have proven themselves formidable, one voice said. They have accomplished what none before them could. They are dangerous, another agreed, but they are also reckless. Their empire is built on force, not stability. A third voice, older and colder, spoke last. Then, let us ensure they never find stability. Let us remind them that in the darkness of the void there are things far older and far deadlier than them. The hooded figures nodded in unison, and the shadows moved back on Vecta Prime. Admiral Al Rains stood on the balcony of the former Dominion Palace overlooking Thessaly. Below, human banners flew where Dominion emblems once stood. Armed patrols moved through the streets. The once mighty empire of conquerors now lived under human rule. Solace stepped beside him. So what now? Rains didn't answer immediately. He looked out at the stars, knowing that their victory had only led to the greater dangers. The war had ended, but the next battle was just beginning. The shadows moved unseen, whispering through the void between the stars. Humanity had conquered the Dominion, but something far older had been Dominion's remaining forces were either surrendering or tearing each other apart. The occupation was holding for no, but the weight of their victory was already pressing down on him. Commander Solace entered the chamber without a word, dropping a data pad onto the table. His expression was grim. Rains picked up datapad. What am I looking at? Solace folded his arms. A pattern one. We shouldn't be seeing. The report contained star maps marked with strange anomalies. At first glance they looked like nothing, just deep space disturbances, unexplored voids. But the more Rains studied them, the more he saw the truth. These systems, Rians muttered. They're dying. Solace nodded. Sensors picked up something strange in multiple Dominion territories. Planets with sudden mass extinctions, orbital stations going completely dark, entire fleets disappearing. No distress calls, no debris, just gone. Rains leaned forward. Are we dealing with a rogue faction? Solace hesitated. We don't think this is Dominion related, sir. Some of these star systems weren't even occupied, and yet something erased them. A chill ran down Rains's spine. The Dominion had been a brutal empire, but they had been predictable. This ? This was something else. Where was the last incident? Rains asked. Solace's tapped the datapad. A single name appeared. Zaris 4, a fringe colony world deep in former Dominion space. No communications for over a week. Solace said it was supposed to be a minor refueling station. Population of 600. Our scout sent oprobe. Rains glanced up and Solace hesitated before swiping on the datapad. The holographic display flickered to life, showing footage from the probe. At first, nothing but static. Then darkness. The planet below was eerily silent, covered in deep black scars. No lights, no movement. Cities were still intact, yet lifeless. No visible damage, but every building looked wrong, as if something had emptied them. Then the footage cut to black. That was the last transmission. Solace said after that the probe was gone. Rain set the data pad down slowly. This isn't a rebellion, he said. Nosalice agreed. This is something else. Rains clenched his jaw. He had spent his career fighting enemies. He could understand the Dominion for all their cruelty had been alive, but whatever this was, it felt like death itself. The HSS Revenant arrived at Zealous 4. Within the week, it was one of humanity's best reconnaissance vessels, outfitted with stealth tech and deep space sensors. Major Carter led the team. Personally, landing in one of the colony's main cities, she stepped out off the dropship, pulse rifle in hand, her boots crunching against the eerily silent streets. The city was untouched but empty. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Doors were left open. Meals half-eaten on tables. It was as if the entire colony had simply vanished. Jesus, one of her soldiers muttered. This is worse than a battlefield. Carter kept moving, scanning the area. Then she stopped. Her HUD flickered. A whisper echoed in her helmet. A strange, static-filled voice. You are not ready. Then the lights above flickered and the shadows began to move back on the HSS Retribution. Alarms blurred, sir, an officer shouted. We just lost contact with the Revenant. One moment, they were there, and then nothing. Rains shot up from his seat. Get me visuals. The screen flickered. At first nothing, but static, then an image, a single frame. The ruins of Zealous 4, and something standing in the center of the city, tall features blacker than space itself, watching. The transmission cut. Silence fell across the bridge, then slowly Solace's exhaled. Admiral, he said quietly, what the hell did we just wake up? The silence that followed was thick with tension. The bridge crew of the HSS Retribution remained frozen, staring at the dark screen where the last image of Zara's 4 had played. Admiral Rains felt the weight settle in his gut. He had fought wars, seen entire fleets reduced to wreckage, watched civilizations crumble under orbital bombardments. But this was something else. If this was an enemy he couldn't see, and it had just wiped out one of his best teams. Solace exhaled sharply. Orders, Sir. Rains's mind raced. The smart move, logical move, was to pull back, report this anomaly to the Terran High Council, and let scientists and analysts break it down. But Major Carter was down there. His soldiers were down there. He wasn't leaving them behind. Proper recon. Team Rains ordered. We're going to Zealous 4. Solace tensed. Sir, we don't even know what we're up against. Rains met his gaze. Then it's time we found out. Hours later, the HSS Revenant 2, a heavily armed infiltration cruiser, descended into the dead skies of Zara's 4. The storm clouds above were unnatural black, twisting alive. The sensors struggled to penetrate the haze. But Rains didn't need a perfect reading. He could feel it in his bones. Something was wrong here. Aboard the dropship, the retrieval team double-checked their weapons, experimental plasma rifles, motion trackers, and enough explosives to leave Ayla City. Block, remember, Rains said over the comms, this isn't a rescue mission. We don't know if anyone's left alive. The dropship doors slid open, revealing the ruins of the city below, and the emptiness. Buildings stood intact. Vehicles remained parked along the street lights flickered in eerie rhythmic pulses, but there were no bodies, no signs of struggle, just a city abandoned in an instant. The team moved forward cautiously. Eyes up, Sess muttered, scanning the rooftops. This place feels like a goddamn grave. Rains gritted his teeth. It wasn't a grave had bodies. This was where they found the HSS Revenant near the city center, untouched but irresolute. The ship's exterior was fine, no battle scars, no forced entry, yet the crew was missing. Rains stepped inside, rifle raised. The interior was intact, but the air was thick with something unnatural. The lights flickered. Shadows seemed longer than they should have been, and in the command center, a single message had been scrolled across the walls in black tar-like fluid. They are not dead, they were taken. Rains felt a cold chill crawl up his spine, then his calm crackled. Sir, came a shaky voice. You need to see this. Rains followed the signalto. A side alley, a single figure stood in the shadows, helmet cracked, armor scorched. Major Carter alive, but when she turned, Rains saw her eyes. They weren't hers anymore, and she started to whisper in a voice that wasn't her own. The area awake. The air in the alley grew colder as Major Carter's voice rasped through the cowls, unnatural and layered as though something ancient spoke through her. They are awake. Admiral Rains tightened his grip on his rifle, his instincts screaming at him to fire, to end whatever this was. But this was Carter, one of his best. He could not yet. Carter, he said, his voice steady despite the dread clawing at him. What's happening? Who's awake? Her head tilted unnaturally, her blank hollow eyes locking onto his. The ones who came for, the ones who wait beyond. You woke them when you tore the Dominion apart, Commander. Solace's stepped forward, his weapon trained on her. Admiral, She's not herself, we need to. Before he could finish, the ground trembled. A low resonant hum pulsed through the city, vibrating. In their bones, the shadows around them stretched and twisted, no longer bound by the loss of light or physics from the edges of the streets. Tall, featureless figures merged, blacker than the void, their forms shifting like liquid darkness. Red rains barked into his comms. All units fall back to the drop ship now. The team didn't hesitate. They opened fire as they retreated, plasma rounds steering into the figures. The shots seemed to dissipate into nothingness, walled by the entity's forms. The hum grew louder, drowning out the sound of gunfire. Carter didn't move. She stood there, whispering as the shadows closeted in. Rains grabbed Cess. "What, not leaving her, sir? She's gone," Solaces shouted, pulling back. "Look at her." But Rains didn't listen. He charged forward, slamming into Carter and dragging her toward the dropship. Her body was limp, but her lips kept moving, muttering Jincomprians words. The entities surged after them faster. Now the city itself seemed to warp, buildings bending inward, streets cracking as though reality was unraveling. The dropship engines roared to life as the team piled in. Rains threw Carter inside. Just as one of the shadow figures reached for him, Solaces fired a point-blank plasma burst, and for a split second, entity recoiled. Enough time for the doors to slam shut. "Get us out of here." Regans roared. The dropship shot into the sky. The HSS Revenant 2 waiting gobbled behind them. Zealous 4 shuddered. The black scars on its surface spread like Odysseys, consuming the planet. Then in an instant it vanished, not destroyed, not shattered, but gone as if it had never existed. Back aboard the HSS Retribution, crew worked frantically to stabilize Carter. She was alive but unresponsive, her vitals erratic. Scientists in hazmat suits scanned her, their faces pale. Ashley whispered about unknown energy signatures and anomalous cellular degradation. Rains stood over her, watching as her lips twitched, still forming silent words. Solaces approached, his voice low. "What the hell was that, Admiral? What did we just fight?" Rains didn't answer immediately. His mind raced, piecing together the fragments. Carter's words, the dominions collapsed. The sudden emergence of these things, whatever they weren't just a threat. They were a consequence. We didn't just win a war, Hesed. Finally we broke something older than the Dominion, older than us. Solace frowned. "You think this is our fault?" "I think we kicked over a rock," Rains replied, and something crawled out. From underneath the comms crackled a transmission from the Terran High Council. Admiral Rains, Chancellor Monroe's voice cut through, sharp and urgent. "We've lost contact with 3 more systems near Zealous 4 reports of shadows. What's happening out there?" Rains exchanged a glance with Solaces, then he straightened, his resolve hardening. "We've got a new enemy, sir," he said, "and it's not one we can fight with railguns." Monroe's silence was heavy. "Then what do you propose?" Rains